Welcome to Eternal Paradigm. Together we're uncovering the human experience and exploring physical, mental, emotional and spiritual stories with me, your host, Amy Ravel. Welcome to this episode of Eternal Paradigm. Before I start, I thought I'd fill you in on a couple of emails and messages I've had this week from listeners. I've started most episodes saying I hope you're enjoying your journey to find you. And I also sign off on emails and messages saying stay true to you. So I wanted to explain this a little bit further. And I thought, well, why not do this on a podcast, seeing as when people are contacting me, they're asking me about this. So in relation to I hope you enjoy your journey to find you, to begin with, the aim of this podcast really, as you know, is to explore and share the stories and experiences of many different people from all over the world. The stories are lived realities for each of the guests. And they're also an important revelatory process for each person. The path that brings each of us closer to, I guess, to the truth or the true us each and every moment. That's what this podcast is really trying to show. For some people, it can take months or years. And for others, it can take several lifetimes to really feel that connection to themselves, to really understand their core value, their core purpose, and their core being. I mean, everybody has a need or a want to help and to feel loved. And that forms part of that. But you know, when you ultimately love yourself or find yourself, that's a little bit different. So from my perspective, I guess what I'm saying is that the journey and each step within the journey, each emotion and experience is more powerful in itself than reaching an ideal destination, which means stop, pause, be in the now, which means connect, reconnect with yourself and take some time to reflect. Because I don't think we reflect enough. We're filled with opinions, but not real ideals of reflection. That's just my opinion. So when I sign off on messages and emails with stay true to you, and that's my way of saying exactly what it says on the tin. Being true to yourself is the most compassionate act you could ever show yourself. That is after forgiving, showing yourself forgiveness, and ultimately love. This brings me into introducing my guest for this episode. Eva Mehus from Norway shares her story about chasing a dream or what she thought was the ideal way to live in society's materialistic world and following these ideals. And throughout life, as she moved from job to job, every time she became more and more unfulfilled. So when I was listening to Eva's story and we were having our conversation, as she talked me through the process and the experiences of her uncovering her discoveries, I visualized this immensely beautiful butterfly flitting around from here to there constantly, knowing it had somewhere to go, but it wasn't quite sure where. So as she moves on in her life through her jobs, she also reveals how she taught herself to suppress emotions, believing they had no place to be valued. She adopted what we all do, a logical and rational mind to survive. Then one day, after a short illness, she hit a wall and her mind and body disconnected as she caved in to the built-up pressures and ideals that had removed her from connecting with her true self. Here's Eva's story.
Hi, I'm Eva Mehus and I live in Oslo, Norway. I'm 39 and I currently work in the communications department of Norwegian Church Aid, so an NGO that works with people in need abroad.
How did that come about? How did you move from, because you've always done communications related work, that's effectively what you do best. How did you come into this current role?
It was a coincidence, but at the same time, it was a very strange when it happened because I'd gone through a phase where I'd had different roles in different companies, but I wasn't happy. And then I hit the famous wall and I figured out that I need a change. So I went to this career counseling, and together we found out that what would suit me best would be to work for an organization or for someone that were helping people or that were doing something good on a society base or individual base, and that I was going to work in communications. And then just after, a friend of mine posted on Facebook that they needed someone in the communications department for Norwegian Church Aid that was specialized in social media, which is my specialization. And from I contacted them until I was in the job, it took like 2-3 weeks. It's just crazy. It was like it was meant to be.
I love that. I love those coincidental meant to be moments.
Yes, it was. And it's like, it still pinched my arm feeling from being quite miserable and just feeling that I'm not doing what I should be doing. I'm not doing what's giving me happiness, until working with these incredible important matters every day with just amazing people. I have the most wonderful colleagues. I still pinch myself on a daily basis just to see that is actually true.
I love that. So at this point in your life, from what I'm understanding from what you're saying, is you hit the wall, which we'll talk about a little bit more in a minute. And now you're doing something where you're inspired daily, you're working on real issues, and you feel like you have a sense of purpose. Is that how you would see it now?
Yes, and I do feel that sense of purpose. I feel it quite strong because the lack of purpose was so evident for me just a short while ago. So I was really struggling with motivation, and everything just felt meaningless. And now it's just turned around, and just being able to work with something you really love. I think it's just so important to manage to first of all, realize what is it that gives me purpose. And I don't think without that career advisor that helped me, I don't think I would have found out on my own. So that was so helpful. And then, finding it out and then actually achieving to get a position in it was, it's a bit surreal still, because it's quite fresh still. But it's so I'm so happy and feel so lucky to have had this, to be helped to find this path.
Thank you for sharing that, Eva. So moving on to what I previously mentioned and what you mentioned too, is you said you hit a wall. Now, that's something I can totally relate to. But when you hit the wall, what happened?
I hit the wall I was working in a position which I was loathing. It was horrible, and I did realize that. So in the trial period, I told them that this isn't working. But then a few things happened which made me stay on for a little bit longer, just to help them out, to be good, to be nice to them. I shouldn't have done that because I wasn't particularly nice with myself, which I realized after. But on the very last day I was working there, my body just shut down. I went down with this incredible, they still haven't figured out what it was. They think that it was some kind of infection in my stomach area, but it was just so painful, and I ended up being checked out in a hospital. But that passed, that physical pain passed. But when that passed, I had no energy. I love running. I was in my best shape ever. And I can easily run 10 kilometers. And from that, I suddenly couldn't walk up 3 flights of stairs to my neighbor without lying down for 2 hours. So it was just incredible that my body just shut down, because I wasn't paying attention to my feelings, and I wasn't paying attention to the signals my body was sending. So I think that if I'd listened to my body or knew how to do it before, it wouldn't have gone that far. But because I wasn't used to doing that, I just ignored it.
When you say you weren't used to doing that, for many people, that's something that they're almost told to not really pay much attention to, because you have to focus on the living outside. What did you learn at that point when you hit the wall, and now with hindsight, you're able to reflect on so many different things? What were those key moments during that process afterwards with the career counsellor and any other help that you had? What were those key moments where you were able to reflect and kind of realize where things were not piecing together very well?
It started off with this career counselor who actually, like, we did career counseling, but she also, so we did pinpoint, where I should go and so on. But she also pointed out to me that I was stressed, constantly stressed. And I've made that my that was my go-to, position. So it's just my normal self, I would be tense or stressed. And I hadn't realized that. And then she said that she really told me to also get a psychologist. And with my psychologist, we unearthed quite a lot of just negative thoughts that I was thinking about myself several times a day. And I realized I've been doing that I'm 39, so I'm guessing at least 25 years, if not more. And just realizing all these negative things that I was thinking about myself. And it also reflected on how I thought about others. And I'd say that this is still an ongoing process, realizing what kind of thought process that automatically happens that I do, and trying to actually think, is this something I should be thinking? Does it do me any good? Does it do others good? And I think that is what you said earlier, that we're so focused on these rules that society have that we take as facts, but they're actually just ideas. Just that, that you have to have a career, you should earn so and so much money, you should live in such and such house. At least here in Norway, that's quite a materialistic way of thinking. And that, instead of focusing on, and then in addition to that, you have these goals that you should achieve, and also feelings have become something that's a bit frowned upon. You should be rational. So a stressful lifestyle where you shouldn't give too much space for your feelings. I think that when you add it all up, you end up with a negative or a very harmful way of living. At least it was for me, because we don't have time to reflect. We don't have time to sit down and actually think things through. I think you just rush from one thing to another, because there's always something that you need to do, or you need to see someone, or there's always a feeling that you have to do something to achieve something. You need to move forward. And I don't think that I think that ideal stresses a lot of people unconsciously, and you end up doing more than you should, and things that you don't actually want to, just because you don't have the time to think through whether you do want it, or whether it's good for you. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. It does. Just reflecting and listening to what you're saying, those cultural, the goals, the materialistic goals that we kind of are all working towards. If you could shed some light, or if you're comfortable sharing, on some of those negative thoughts and some of that negative internal dialogue that you said was so frequent for almost 25 years, what was that like? And what were the words you were using? And how was it making you feel when those things were happening? So, for example, if you were saying certain things to yourself, what were the behaviors that would then follow on from that?
It was mostly that I'm not good enough in all aspects, basically, like from appearance to career-wise to motherhood to all these negative thoughts. It could be like looking in the mirror and going, oh, I'm too fat. Or, oh, I shouldn't be working with this. I should be in a higher position. I should be earning more. And the behavior that led, it was self-loathing, basically. But quite unconsciously, I wasn't aware of it until it was pointed out to me. And I think there's so many feelings that I have. It's a protective way. It's like a pattern that's used to protect me, because in my childhood, I had quite a few incidents where not feeling would protect me from whatever was going on in my family. But as an adult, it's not protecting me anymore. It's more damaging. And the behavior it resulted in was quite often that I had the need to put others down, like looking at someone and then commenting something negative about them. And I think that was because I wasn't feeling good about myself. But I didn't see that connection until quite recently. And it's quite sad that you have to become 40 and to see these negative thoughts. And it's just mental processes that can so easily be changed. And I do feel sad that I didn't know this 20 years ago, that I didn't go to a psychologist then and they said, how do you think about yourself and what thoughts are going on in your head, and having that corrected earlier. That would have been very useful. But I think that it's quite, I've been thinking about it quite a lot, that it's, I think it's society has become a bit like that. It's like, if you look at a company, its success is based on how much money they make, or like how big profit do they have. But that result doesn't say anything about how they treat their staff, what kind of products do they produce, is it good for the planet. It's just a number. And usually those profits are then given out as bonuses to the shareholders or the leaders. And it only benefits the top. And we accept that system, and it has become a fact, basically, how this is how it should be done. But a success of a business, I think, should, and I'm going maybe a bit far out here now, but it shouldn't just be the numbers. I mean, if a business does something good for society, if they do things, or they produce something, or they have services that is profitable, that is inclusive for all people, also vulnerable people that are often left out and so on, that is not reflected in numbers. They might break even, but have done so incredible things. But in a traditional view, that would not be success, because they're not making money, they're not growing, etc., etc. And I think like that is, it's just a symbol or an example of how we as a society on a macro level and micro level have lost the focus of what is important. I mean, making money just to make money should not be important in my world.
Yeah, no, and from what you're saying, it's the whole, we've accepted a fact as the truth, but actually the truth is very different to the fact.
Yeah, and I think that like it's happening in all levels of the society, and then I think I internalized it and made it valid for me too. Like, I wasn't valuable until I made so and so much money, even though I was miserable. That was kind of my goal for happiness. And now I've realized, I've actually sat down with my psychologist and with my career counselor and taken the time to analyze and figure out what does make me happy. And money is something that you need to have a certain level of happiness, but it's not the sole thing, and it's the other parts that make you, I mean, you can be happy if you don't have much money, but if you have good friends, you have a good relationship, you have children, family, like good relations around you. I don't think I could be happy if I had lots of money but no relations.
Yeah. So it's like reprioritizing on what's important to you. Yeah.
It's been a quite strange process to realizing that what I've been going around thinking was truth and my path for so many years, I've actually been the wrong direction. And it's kind of hard sometimes to, even though you can see it, that admitting it and making it part of yourself, because then it means you've, I wouldn't say failed, but you've not listened to yourself for so long. And it's been, I mean, I haven't been going to a psychologist for so long, but that short period has helped me so much. And I just wish that I had taken the time to sit down and reflect earlier, so that I wouldn't have to walk down a path that wasn't leading anywhere good.
Would you say you feel regret in that?
Some, I would say. I accept that I do feel some regret. At the same time, I do realize that it doesn't do me any good to sit here and regret. So I accept that I regret parts of it. And then I also see that regretting too much is not going to do me any good. And then rather than regret, focus forward and think, okay, so where is this new path? Because I haven't fully figured it out, and I don't think I ever will, but at least I know now what direction I should be heading. And then I guess there are several paths that are going to come where I'm going to have to choose. And I hope that I do a better choice now, having reflected. And I do actively reflect, because I've realized how important it is to actually let yourself reflect and feel. Because I haven't paid attention to my feelings in so many years. And that is also quite difficult to change from this automatic rationalizing everything that is going on. Like, let's say I get sad for something. Someone hurts me or something just makes me sad. Before, I would maybe allow myself to feel sad for maybe half a minute, most often not that long. And then I would start rationalizing, okay, but this has happened, but because of this and this and this and that, if I change this, maybe that can happen. Instead of just, okay, I'm sad, this isn't feeling right, and letting myself cry and just be in that feeling, because then you produce the hormones that give relief and you come out on the other side feeling lighter because you've actually dealt with your feeling instead of just boiling it up. And like for me, not very long ago, my body just shut down.
The reflection is incredibly powerful.
Yeah, it is. But it's not easy. It's hard work.
Yeah, definitely. Like you said, it's not something that is fully understood. And especially if it's almost like relearning a new behavior that hasn't really been known to you.
Yeah, and it hasn't set yet. So, if something happens, I think my old ways still kick in. But then now I am aware that, okay, I'm starting to rationalize. No, hold it. I'm just going to try to be in this feeling. So I'm rationalizing that I should be in my feeling, basically. But it does work.
It does. And that's how you get to it. That's how you turn it into a habit.
Yeah. But it's not easy to change all these patterns that all these patterns. They're so deep because I've been doing the same thing for so many years. So it takes a while to smooth them over and make a new pattern. But I'll get there, I hope.
Oh, I'm sure you will. You said something about how you still haven't figured it out, but you know that several paths will show up. How does the fact that you still haven't figured it out and there's a possibility that none of us ever will, how does that make you feel? Because there's a lot of acceptance that has to be felt to, accept that feeling of the unknowing. How does that sit with you?
I'm not afraid of it, at least. I mean, sometimes, like in these times when there's so many things going on that you don't know, like the COVID, and economies are struggling all over the world, and, things are it's not stable as it has been for quite a few years. It's scary, but at the same time, I have learned that you just have to deal with it. I mean, I don't think it's gonna be any better if I go around being scared of what's gonna come. I think that if I'm gonna be happy, I'm just gonna have to keep focusing on what makes me happy.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever comes, I can't change that. But at least I will do what I can change, or what I can do to make myself happy and my family happy and my friends happy. And then the circumstances will be like whatever happens, because most of the time I can't change it.
Yes.
So just accepting that it's not that I don't know what's coming, but at the same, and not being afraid of that.
So where you are at now, are you, or do you see yourself as a better friend, a better parent, and a better person to be with in the workplace?
Yes, I want to answer like yes to that, just period. But as it is still a process, sometimes I do tread wrong, but I think in general, yeah, because I've become much more aware of. Well, I used to think that I had to adapt to others. Like the most visible was that I actually change my dialect when I speak to people in Norway to the same dialect that the person was talking. I didn't keep my own dialect. I changed it so that I matched the other person. And I used to do that in so many ways, not just like the way I spoke, but like if some person was displaying a particular behavior, I would match that. Whereas now I have become much more aware of my boundaries and what do I like and what are my values and what do I want to do. So that in meeting with other people, I think I might have been perceived as a bit like a person without not without my own meanings, but I would follow. Whereas now I will in a much larger extent say, no, I don't agree to that, or no, I don't want to do that. Or just if someone asks me, what do you want to do? My first thought isn't, oh gosh, what does that other person want to do? Because I want to answer something that that other person also want to do, so that we don't have a conflict, or we don't have that the other person won't think that I'm suggesting something stupid or boring. Like I was thinking in consequences all the time. Whereas now I'm much more, okay, if you ask me what I want to do and I answer something and you don't agree, well, that's fine. Then we'll just figure out something together, because we are allowed to have different opinions, interests, and meanings without that meaning that the other person will reject. I think that I have realized that I get much more respect for having my opinions, having my interests and values, and standing for them rather than trying to adapt all the time. So I think that people, at least in the workspace, have become much more, I think it's much easier to work with me, because I do say, if someone asks my opinion, I will give my feedback without holding back, because it doesn't mean that they won't like me if I tell them that their idea might not be good because of so-and-so, or because then we will work and find something that works, which I didn't dare to that much before.
I guess it's almost like people pleasing.
Mm-hmm.
Where did that come from? Where do you think it started?
It's fear of rejection, fear of not being good enough, I think. And it's, when you've been telling yourself that you're not good enough for so long, you believe that you're not good enough. And then you think that the only way I can be good enough is to match other people's wants and desires and interests and values and so on, instead of just standing up for your own. But when you don't stand up for your own needs, and when you don't respect yourself, then others won't either. But I'm not sure, because I don't know that, because I haven't seen myself from the outside. This is just what I think happened. But it would be interesting to hear what others would say about that knew me. Would they recognize what I say now and think, yeah, she did. She'd never said what she wanted to do, actually, or she never. We always ended up doing. Would they recognize my thoughts?
See, now you've got me thinking.
Yeah,
I know. Now I'm thinking back to every single time we've met. Oh, hold on.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to think about this some more.
Yeah, do that. Yeah, but it's very interesting. But at least I think that I think it has to do with rejection, not wanting to be rejected. Wanting to belong, wanting to be part of something. And I think that's still a big part of me, wanting to belong. But I think that I have realized that I can belong just being me. And if someone doesn't like me, that's not the end of the world. Which has, I think, the one big change that has come from realizing these things are, before, when I was out with friends and so on, I would always search for new acquaintances, meeting new people, because I was always sort of searching for something cooler, something better, instead of just being in my circle with the friends that actually wanted to go out with me or be with me and just having fun in that situation. I was constantly searching for something better, which meant that the people that I was out with very often felt like I wasn't present. And when you try to meet someone in a social setting or something, that never becomes more fun or deeper than the actual people who are there who do care about you. So I ended up losing on both sides, but just not realizing that. And now when I'm with people, right now with COVID, you hardly do that anyway. But when I'm with people, I just focus on that and just fully be in that situation. And that makes me just so much more happy, because then I can just relax in that situation and not just search for something else all the time. And that is also another thing that's interesting, that you have to be 39 to realize.
I think it happens to the best of us, don't worry.
Yeah, but it's just so strange that, when you say it out loud and you actually reflect on it, it sounds so obvious. And I just find it so strange because I look at myself as a fairly intelligent person. And it's a bit strange that I haven't realized that that was what I was doing and that it wasn't leading anywhere. I should have, because I kept repeating it for so many years. And like, why didn't I just stop up and think, okay, this isn't actually working. I'm hurting those people who care about me. And these other people, they don't really care.
Oh,
Yeah, but you know what I mean?
I do. But there are so many reasons that we overlook these things, and
Yeah.
Logic. We turn to logic and rationalization, and we turn to our intelligent mind to help us understand. But in your experience and in my experience, it's become very clear that the mind itself can be hijacked very easily.
Very easily, yeah.
And when the mind is hijacked, it becomes easy to fall into those societal perceived facts, which then become your truth. And ultimately, you're denying yourself from your absolute truth.
Yeah.
So the intelligent mind doesn't teach us or tell us this.
No, it doesn't. Yeah. But so I think that like just all these things have actually made me a better, I think it's maybe not better. Well, yes, I think better. I really hope better, but also just easier person to be with. And I think easier makes it also better. It's easier to read me because it's easier to know where I am, because I do actually speak my honest mind and not just what I think that the other person wants to hear.
So taking this to motherhood and parenting, where are you at now in that journey?
I think that I have even stronger. I have now realized that they matter the most because it's me. I mean, where I'm divorced, so, it's me and them. And through this process, I have realized that they are the ones that should be my number one priority at any time. I have at times put them second in, not overall, but in certain situations where they shouldn't have. And that I've stopped with. They are number one. If there are several things I want to do or occasions that collide, then they are the ones that will be prioritized always. Because I've realized, like, my daughter's now 12 and she's not going to be around for that many more years. So for them, but also for me, I'm going to make the most of these years that I have with them so close, because they are going to start wanting to shape their own lives quite soon. And I'm not going to be that big a part of it. I mean, I'm always going to be their mother, but they are going to make their own lives with studies and friends and finding a new family and so on, or starting their own families. So I'm just going to make sure that I am here 100%. This allotted time that I have with them when they still consider me as one of the most important parts of their lives.
I get that. Totally get that. So my question is, what advice would you give to Eva if you could go back 20 years? Because you said that a lot of the stuff that you did with all the kind of help that you got, you wish that you did that 20 years ago. But standing here now, if you were able to talk to Eva 20 years ago, what 3 things would you say to her?
I would say go to a psychologist and figure out your feelings, because all people in the whole wide world are equipped with the same feelings. And if all people have this system, it's because it's important. It's universal, and they have to be treated like they're important. Being sad, not a weakness. Being ashamed is not a weakness. You just have to acknowledge these feelings, accept them, and work with it if it's something that bothers you, instead of just ignoring and not trying not to notice and rationalizing it away all the time. I mean, it's nothing wrong with rationalizing as long as you always give space to your feelings as well. It's something that goes together. So I would say to my 20-year-old self, figure out your own feelings and do it with professional help. So that's one thing. And with that, dare to recognize your own values, your own boundaries, and dare to set the boundaries and don't let anyone break them. It's self-respect. That is my advice number 2. And number 3 is very concrete and or very precise, and that would be don't give up on studying psychology, because that is what you actually want. But that I know now, and I didn't know that then. But I did start psychology studies in psychology. I should have continued with that, because that was the 1 year at university that I thoroughly loved. I love communications as well, but I loved psychology more.
There's still time. So you can
there's time, yeah.
There's time.
There's time. But yeah, so yeah, there should be, maybe in a few years, I might be doing this psychology again. But at the moment, as I told you, I'm pinching my arm because I'm so happy with my work. So, even though I didn't choose psychology, I've now ended up in a very good place. So very, very happy with that.
I hope you enjoyed that. Thank you for joining me for this episode of Eternal Paradigm. Join me next time.